Monday to you all. Welcome to the tip-off, the show that sets the stage for all the most important news, daily fantasy plays, and bets on tonight's 9-game NBA slate and 6-game MLB slate. I am your host, Kayla Knierim. We've got Ben Rasa with us on this Monday, as well as Chris Spags. Ben, you're new to the Monday show. How's it going?
Yeah, it's good. I'm subbing in for Greg or Eric, one of those two characters. I don't know who's normally on this, but yeah, I'm excited. Normally, I'm licking my wounds from a tragic golf weekend, but you know what? It was a low-key golf weekend. We've got a low-key golf tournament this week, so I'm hopping on for an extra tip-off show.
Love it. Spags, how was your weekend?
It was good. I have no complaints. Went to the dog beach yesterday, and I guess the one downside would be my dog is getting older, and she left it all in the field, and I was very impressive. Caught, I think, had like a 90% catch rate from what I was tracking in my head just to entertain myself as we were out there. But because she's an old dog, she like left it all out there, and now today she's just limping around and being pathetic, and it's cute and sad and adorable. She tuckered herself out. She'll be back on the train here, but I certainly relate to that. I'm sure everybody who out there who's maybe didn't get enough gym time during the pandemic, now you're getting back in there. And me and my dog, very similar boats, where great catch rates, and also we are just feeble right now and trying to work out and get in any sort of shape.
Well, shoot. I know. I didn't get as many workouts in over the weekend as I wanted to. We'll get back on track this week.
I believe in us. I believe in the power of us, really, more than anything.
We can do it. All right, y'all, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for countless hours of content on the NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, and every other sport that is in season. Really quick, we want to talk about our sponsor, No House Advantage, who is taking a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, NFL, and PGA for cash prizes. This exclusively peer-to-peer fantasy sports platform levels the playing field and makes it easier for you to win real cash compared with your traditional DFS sites. The best part is you can join for free today. Just download the No House Advantage app and use promo code Awesemo to receive a first match deposit bonus of up to $20. Be your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. I feel like I can almost do that without having to read it. It's almost muscle memory. We're almost there. All right, let's first head over to our bad beats from the weekend. It was another weekend of sports and Jake Paul fights, of course. So how did things look for you guys this weekend? Any particular bad beats? Spags, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I had a pretty nice Saturday, did deeper dive with Alex, had good results with my NBA night. But the one thing that tilted me this weekend, but obviously besides Jake Paul and Ben Askren and Jake Paul's rich guy habit now of paying these guys just get beaten up for 5 minutes of work. More power to Ben Askren getting paid there, but that was that. The one thing that sucked for me was the best ball on DK, and it was such a downer for me because I had a team that was steamrolling all the tournaments I was in, or was comparing around, had great results in that first month, whatever month and a half it was of the DK NBA best ball tournaments. And I needed one player to come through yesterday, really one player to come through on Friday and yesterday. And that man was John Wall, who sat for rest yesterday. On Friday, also played 20 minutes, somehow put up 11 fantasy points. And I felt like I got good value on the best ball drafts, felt like my team had a chance to make it into the second to last round here that I think is starting today. But unfortunately, John Wall just not good or not playing. And those are two things that I find to be very important in NBA DFS.
So I'm going to go to a place where neither of you are going to know who this is. I'm going to a guy named Max Kiefer, who is a German golfer who plays only in Europe, and he plays on the European Tour. I love this guy. He's not particularly good, just kind of a run-of-the-mill player, and this was his moment. He had it won, was going to win his first tournament, and he lost on the 5th playoff hole after a string of miraculous things. And I did have exposure to him betting. It would have been nice. Probably never going to win. I'm rooting for him, but that trumped anything that happened in the basketball world to me. Like I said, it was an uneventful golf weekend here, but on the European Tour in Austria, Max Kiefer should have took down his first ever European Tour win, and he lost in one of the more brutal fashions I've ever seen.
Wow. I did not know any of that.
I never thought he would make a tip-off show. I'll say that. That is a true rarity that guy's name was mentioned, but small consolation prize if he's watching.
Ben bringing some golf into our world on this Monday.
Maybe a segment we could build on for the future, Ben, where we have the Max Kiefer guy that only matters to us guy we talk about when we have an hour show and we really need to fill time. I think don't be surprised if that one makes its way back in.
We're going to be doing some things. We're going to get some Kentucky Derby is only a couple weeks away. There will be some horse talk on the tip-off show in the next couple weeks. That I can guarantee you.
Love me some horse racing. Also, guys, do you know where Ben Askren went to college?
It was a goddamn Mizzou.
I was at Mizzou and he was there.
He was a great wrestler too. So I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Big man on campus.
And just to add to that, I am over the Paul boys. Like they just don't go away.
They are the Mike Tysons of our generation. They are making so much money from these fights. It's absurd. More power to them. And Conor McGregor rumored to be next for Jake Paul, and probably, depending on how it goes for him with against Dustin Poirier, might be Conor McGregor's last payday. So I'm never gonna be mad at people making money, but it's crazy. This is now like the biggest main event in boxing is one of the Paul brothers, the YouTube star Paul brothers fighting.
I hate it here. Just kidding. All right, let's get to our NBA news. First up, we've got Sekou Doumbouya. I have no idea how to say that name. Jeremy Grant, Corey Joseph, Mason Plumlee, Wayne Ellington, Rodney McGruder, and Dennis Smith Jr. are out for Detroit tonight versus Cleveland. We've seen a situation have big DFS upside just last week. So, Ben, who do you trust on Detroit tonight?
Well,
What's
basically,
your name?
Yeah, I mean, you just listed off. Who do I trust on Detroit? Pretty much anyone else that's able to play. We talked about this last week. With this injury situation, there's just not that many guys who are going to get runs. So, you've got Sadiq Bey, very solid. Stewart in the front court, extremely solid. Killian Hayes, who is someone that Spags, you weren't really on the last time we were on the show, and he's very cheap. Again, I'm interested to see what you say there. And then Josh Jackson's another guy. So depending on how aggressive you're going, you could have a couple Pistons. It's a horrible game, but it's also going to be probably a pretty competitive game. It's just a 2.5 point spread for the Cavs on the road here. These are both awful teams. When you look at these price points, these guys are going to be thrust into major minutes, and they're all hovering either around 5K or upper threes. So you have value here, and it's hard to ignore the Pistons as another pay down option this tonight.
Yeah, I think they look good for the most part. And I could see going to Killian Hayes, but, and his price point, I think, is one that hasn't taken a jump up at all. So that's, to me, looks fine, though. I'm still not in love with it. I think we're going to have some better value plays we're going to talk about during the injury segment that I have a little more confidence in on a night-to-night basis. But the runway is there for Killian Hayes as well as Saban Lee, two guys who should be seeing an appreciable amount of minutes. But the guy who jumps out to me is Josh Jackson at a 35% usage rate in that last game where there was nobody left. And it was against Oklahoma City, who is a little bit faster paced than Cleveland. So maybe that does mean that Josh Jackson went on the same upside. But in that game, Josh Jackson also struggled with foul issues. I think the ceiling could have been a bit higher for him. So he's a guy I trust. I think also Isaiah Stewart's a guy I trust, though there are some center plays that are now better value prices. Stewart's a monster whenever you give him the run without Plumlee out there. He kind of has to see, upwards of at least 28 minutes, you would think. He does have Jahlil Okafor in the mix, so that's one guy who takes some minutes away, but it's not the same as having Plumlee out there. So I think really the guys I would trust today are Josh Jackson and Isaiah Stewart. And then if I get some Sadiq Bey, some Killian Hayes, I don't mind that quite as much, but I think those guys, to me, not as concrete as a guy like Jackson is, and a guy like Isaiah Stewart, who's just been a monster, and Josh Jackson too, historically been a fantasy monster as well.
Steph Curry and Kelly Oubre are questionable tonight in a road game at Philly, while Juan Toscano-Anderson has already been ruled out. Spags, how does this situation look for Golden State if Steph and Oubre are in, and who benefits if they sit?
So I think Steph is still a tournament play you can go to today, as is pretty much always the case when he's on the slate with Russell Westbrook. That was the case on Saturday over the weekend, and Steph Curry ended up outscoring Westbrook by a little bit in that spot against Boston. To me, it's the same spot today where Westbrook looks better on paper. You can go to Curry as a pivot if he's in, and he does look better as a pivot if Oubre remains out. That was something that on Saturday I dinged Curry a little bit for thinking Oubre was going to be in because they said he was going to play. Then Oubre ended up not playing, or first he was going to be playing off the bench, then ended up not playing at all. So in this spot, if Oubre is in, I think you have to give a little bit of a haircut to Steph Curry's usage, but overall, the main way that he exists on the DFS slate is really just playing him in lineups where you don't have Westbrook. You're trying to get different, trying to get some more upside, and the upside's certainly been there for him. But the median projection to me just doesn't make him a core play on a slate of this size.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have to see the status, of course, and he's taking upwards of 15 to 23s a game, and he's still on a run, better proportion shooting, but at the same time, there's plenty of depth. You mentioned Westbrook, and certainly if Curry sits, obviously that would open up extreme value, maybe Poole, someone like that. But we have to obviously monitor and see what's what. That spread would be massive if he does in fact sit. So if he's in, and I kind of expect him to be, I think it's fine. Of course, he's got, when you're shooting that much and you can get hot, of course he has some upside, but he wouldn't be my priority either because you are allocating a lot of salary when you're rostering him.
In that same game, Seth Curry, Tobias Harris, and Ben Simmons are all questionable alongside George Hill and Dwight Howard. Ben, how would these guys being ruled out affect things tonight?
So yeah, this is situations, same game. I mean, Embiid is going to be in play regardless, but if everybody else is out, he is just going to be an absolute monster. And then you're really more comparing him kind of really small edges against Jokic. So it's one of these situations if all these guys are ruled out, I think it becomes closer. If not, maybe you're looking at him more for an ownership discount, a tournament pivot, things of that nature. So I'm not sure I want to go to the peripheral options on the Sixers, but certainly Embiid, who's always in play. I mean, a lot of people think he may be the MVP. I'm not one of those people, but he's quite good. If all these guys are out, it just solidifies him as maybe the premier option on the slate.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm looking for here, where I right now would prefer Nikola Jokic by a pretty decent margin just because of the fact that Jamal Murray's out, which has meant really big upside for Jokic in terms of the rate data for him with almost a 50% assist rate, some more usage that goes his way. But Embiid would be in a similar spot than if you did have Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris out. I think you probably want to see both those guys out. Seth Curry, to be kind of a non-factor, he'll create more opportunity for guys like Furkan Korkmaz or Danny Green more than he would really meaningfully infect Embiid. But if you have Harris out, if you have Simmons out, that ball is going to go through Embiid. The usage rate for him will probably be just shy of 40%. The assist rate for him goes up a little bit. Everything is going to funnel through him. I think this is an important spot. I think to me, based on the injury news, it wouldn't shock me if you hear like Steph Curry's out, then you hear that Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris are out, because I think that to me is the way that this looks like it's going based on those guys being questionable, and there not really being a logical reason why they're questionable based on anything we've heard. I guess Tobias has missed games. Ben Simmons comes out of nowhere with his questionable status. So definitely have to watch the injury news. The Live Before Lock show will hopefully have that in time to give you guys the detail there. But I think, this is a spot to really watch closely, because if we do end up with no Harris and with no Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid's probably one of the best plays on the slate.
Okay. John Wall is expected to play for Houston today versus Miami after missing yesterday due to rest. Spags, how does he look with a really up and down last few weeks?
So I am, besides what we talked about earlier with the best ball stuff, I've normally been a proponent of John Wall. I think on the year he's been pretty good, about a 1.2 fantasy point per minute player. The assist rate's been there. The usage has been there. In this spot against Miami, though, a down pace situation, and then you still have all the other guys in for Houston. You have your Kevin Porter Jr.'s. You have really anybody who could sort of do more things, like the Kelly Olynyk guys that they added at the trade deadline. I think Wall's hard to get to when you just don't know what you're going to get. That 11 fantasy point day in 28 minutes against Denver was jarring to me, just because I don't know how that happened. I wasn't watching that game that night, and I haven't dug into the tape on it I'm just trying to move on with my life after that one, but baffling how that could happen to me with how Wall is. And I think it sort of shows a little bit of the motivation as well, where Houston, what are they playing for? Wall's barely playing at this point. I think he's just trying to get through the year. I don't love Wall on a slate where we have really good point guard plays. So I think, really having him back in makes everybody else unplayable, but also Wall himself looks unplayable to me. So I just don't want to be there at all today.
Yeah, and just looking, at our projections behind the paywall kind of confirms that he doesn't stand out really in any conceivable way. There's a ton of guys with a similar salary, similar upside, certainly more value out there. And you've mentioned the pace down spot. It's pretty big. Miami's the fourth slowest team in the league. Houston, one of the fastest. So there's nothing that really would get me there. You have obviously the allure of low ownership, but there's so many guys on a 9-game slate that you could say that about. Wall to me is just someone kind of, it's almost a situation like, unless there was a specific reason that you were forced in or some news opens up. But as you mentioned, Houston has nothing to play for. I don't see really any scenario where he becomes a viable target tonight.
In that same game, Jimmy Butler is questionable after he missed the Heat's last matchup alongside Goran Dragic. I can't talk today, and Andre Iguodala, while Bam and Tyler Hero have already been ruled out. Ben, how do you handle Miami with these absences and question marks?
Yeah, so a lot of moving parts. So we got clarification. Bam and Hero are out. If Jimmy Butler also sits, then we're going to get in a situation maybe like Kendrick Nunn would become someone who we could look to. But if Butler plays, he is someone that I think we can go to, and I think he grades out pretty well in this spot. Everything that we said about Houston, the opposite is true for Miami. This is a pace up spot. It's a good matchup against just a garbage team. So we need some clarification here. And obviously the more guys that are ruled out, the more value will emerge from Miami. But I think really the swing guy is Jimmy Butler in this situation.
Jimmy Butler, I think, is the key for the guards right now, where if you have Dragic, Butler in, I think Nunn is still playable, but probably not quite as good as he's going to look if you do have those guys out. The price tag on Nunn, $4,300 on DK. I think he's one of the chalk plays, probably pretty close to a lock play if you did end up in a situation where Butler and Dragic were both out alongside Hero. These guys all get a pretty decent uptick by not having Tyler Hero in there, as well as Oladipo still remains sidelined. So I think you can sort of play, if you get Butler, Dragic, and Nunn in, these guys are all tournament options. The spots to really watch to me, though, is the bigs, because if we know Dwayne Dedmon is starting, he has been an absolute monster in a very limited sample size for Miami so far, where you have to adjust the rates for him down if you are a person like me who uses your own projections and sort of weights them against what Awesemo is putting out there. But Dwayne Dedmon this year is at a 38% rebound rate. That's not going to keep up. But going back to last year, where he really wasn't that good and was kind of, kicked around a couple teams, I think got released from the Kings before the season was over. He still had an 18.3% usage rate and 18.5% rebound rate. You give him those rates, and if he were to start getting 23 minutes from Awesemo right now, he looks like a very solid value at the minimum salary. But if you also get Precious Achiuwa starting, there are some concerns about Dedmon's conditioning that I think over something that Eric Spoelstra talked about recently, where Dedmon played 6 minutes in his first game and then ended up not playing the next game because he just wasn't there. Then he ended up playing 15 minutes in the last spot for Miami. So you have to know, I guess, that he's going to be getting stable minutes to really feel comfortable. If Dedmon's not getting the stable minutes, Precious Achiuwa is going to get a lot of them. So it's one, you need to know the starting lineup. I think you need to know who's in and who's out. But the big situation to me, regardless of Butler being in or out, or regardless of Dragic being in or out, you have to play one of the Miami bigs, I think, more often than not, whether it be Achiuwa or it is Dwayne Dedmon.
Valanciunas is out tonight, while Brandon Clark, Dylan Brooks, and D'Anthony Melton are questionable. Spags, who do you like in this situation versus Denver?
So in our early run of ownership, we had Xavier Tillman picking up a lot of that. And I think that's something that could be different if we do get Brandon Clark in, because Brandon Clark should be starting at center, though coming off the issues he's had with injuries, he has missed a few games. Maybe he doesn't quite get that same opportunity. So I think really, it's one that you have to, again, we have to watch closely. That's the case with all the NBA news. I think Tillman gets a boost regardless. It wouldn't be shocking if Killian Tilly picked up the start. He and Tillman have been sort of carving up the non-Jonas Valanciunas center minutes. So I think that's something to be mindful of. There's going to be some that pops up here for Memphis, and just so many guys right now. If Dylan Brooks is in, I think that's going to sort of have a downside for guys like Grayson Allen, for guys like John Morant, for Kyle Anderson as well. If he does end up in, or if he ends up out rather, that opens up more upside. So you kind of need to know, I feel like, one or two more injuries here for Memphis to know if these guys are in or out for the backcourt in particular. But the big situation, I think, is one where you're probably going to want to get a good amount of either Brandon Clark or Xavier Tillman. That's going to depend on just if Clark is playing, if he's starting, or if Tillman is starting. Like, it's just one of those, we're playing multiple outcomes at the same time, and it's hard to talk about in the tip-off with a bunch of hours to go. So just, I would say, watch it closely and play who's available is probably how it is.
Yeah, that's always a good starting point, is make sure to play guys that are actually playing. And it's really just plan a couple scenarios, and then as we get more information, some of those are eliminated right off the start. So Tillman is someone, more often than not here, is going to be the obvious pay down option on this slate. It's going to allow you maybe to go get Russ and one of, the good centers, maybe Steph and one of the good centers, something along those lines. If you're really trying to, build the stars and scrubs type lineup. Ja is kind of interesting. I do think he sees a slight boost with Joe Val off the court, but it's not enough. And Denver is a good team. I still respect them enough that the defense and the matchup is not something that I really want to target if I don't have to. The Nuggets are a 7-point favorite at home, 227 total. So mostly it's going to be dependent on, of course, these injury news. That's where the value opens up. Tillman's already getting the ownership, but I have a feeling once we get clarification with the rest, the picture will become much, much clearer.
Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner are both questionable for Indiana in a matchup where they'll need some size versus San Antonio. Ben, do you like either Sabonis or Turner if they're in, and who gets a boost if they're out?
I think Sabonis is kind of interesting. If, of course we want to see either, both, neither, obviously that's going to determine a lot, but he's someone that I feel is going to be a little lost because you look at his price tag, 9,400, which is somewhat premium. And, a lot of people probably going to try to find that extra 1,000 to go get the Embiids or the Jokic's of the world. And that could create some leverage within the situation, within the slate. Now, if both of them ended up sitting, Spags, I don't know. This is your account, your boy Goga. Maybe he returns sub 4K. I guess you could look there. They would be very, very thin in the front court. But again, it's very much a product of who is in and who is out, act accordingly. And if one of them is in, that's obviously going to solidify the usage for that guy.
Yeah, I think this is one, just Ben just said it there, that if these guys both end up, Goga Bitadze becomes one of the better value plays on the slate. He's been a monster on the year. He came through the exact same situation a couple weeks ago, or whatever it was, 10 days ago at this point, a 1.15 fantasy point per minute average on the year. That number could take an uptick in this spot. So I think really going to Goga would be the one that you want to get. You probably would want to get both guys out here and then just have your value center from one team be the Miami value center, whether it be Dedmon or Achiuwa, and then have Goga. I think that's going to be one construction that I would like to see the most. most. But if we do have either one of Sabonis or Turner in, you have to give an upgrade to that guy. So if Sabonis is in and Turner is out, Sabonis is probably going to be playing some more center minutes or just exclusively center minutes at that point. So really for him, he gets the jump up that you want there. If Sabonis is out and Turner is in, Turner gets more usage, gets a little bit more assists. So he looks good. And then if both are in, I think this is a situation where I'd mostly want to avoid it. I guess Sabonis on FanDuel, a better play, but overall on DraftKings, I feel like the price point, not the best on this slate. A guy you can get to, but I think for me, if you end up with both guys in, I don't think they're priced in this situation right now to expect to have both guys in. So you're kind of getting that handcuff here on the pricing that we talk about a lot on this show, where you're trying to get guys when the situation doesn't reflect what they're getting that night in a positive way, where they're going to get more usage, going to get more minutes and all of that. If you get both Sabonis and Turner in, you're getting them priced for, I think, really one of them being out. And that to me is a spot where you mostly want to stay from, other than on FanDuel again for Sabonis.
All right, that's going to do it for our NBA news. Friends, get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, lineup builder, and much more. We also have a special MMA deal running for UFC 261 on April 24th. Get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus MMA when you use promo code UFC 261. That's $14.98 for 30 days of Awesemo Plus MMA, which includes our fighter projections, ownership projections, and our top fighter tools, which compares projected ownership with the chances of any fighter being one of the top fighters. This offer is valid through Saturday, April 24th. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Let's head on into our one-on-one in these battles between stars. Which player would you rather have in NBA DFS or prop bets tonight? First up, assuming Steph Curry plays, he's in a high upside situation after shooting over 15 three-pointers in 4 out of his last 5 games. He faces Joel Embiid tonight, a player at a similar price point, but different position, who could be without Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. Spags, who do you want in this one-on-one, Steph or Embiid?
So I'll try to make this simple here in the hopes that we can make up some time after the injury news, of course, always kills it, as it just does every single show. But I'll say for me right now, if we were to assume that Tobias and Ben Simmons are playing, I would favor Steph Curry. Kayla just mentioned the three-pointers numbers being really huge there. Ben's talked about it a lot as well. He's hitting at an unsustainable clip, but it's Steph Curry. So is it really unsustainable? I think that's really up to you guys to decide. But I think Steph Curry having outlier day is not the craziest thing in the world, especially as they are feeding him to get him going here. But if you do get either, well, I guess really both, I think is the case. I think if you got one of them out, I would still favor Steph. But if you get both Tobias and Ben Simmons out, I think you have to go very heavy Joel Embiid here, just because he's going to dominate the ball, especially if you get Steph in on the other side. It's going to be probably a more competitive game. And you have Embiid in a competitive game where there's nobody else to shoot and also nobody to stop him on the Warriors side. I think that's a really potent situation for Embiid. So right now, if you get Tobias and you get Ben Simmons in, I would go Steph. If you get them out, I think you have to go Embiid in a very large way.
Yeah, I'm right in line with that. I mean, Sixers 9-point favorite at home here. It's teetering on the edge of being dangerous in terms of a spread, but it's not there yet. And I think if we get, most of these guys on Philly ruled out outside of Embiid, that could temper expectations for a massive blowout. And Steph on the other side, he can single-handedly keep a minute with the way he's shooting, but at the same time, the advantage in the front court there. And it's just a very interesting, dynamic within the slate, because you have direct pivots off Russ and we're off Jokic. So it's like, one of those situations, both these guys are going to have some tournament appeal and they're so good. The ceilings will be there, but I would also lean to Embiid, particularly if the injury news falls the right way.
Devin Booker faces off with the Bucks tonight in a game where he likely, needs to excel to keep his team competitive. Drew Holiday is a bit cheaper, but has less predictable upside with Giannis available. Ben, who looks better in this one-on-one, Booker or Drew?
So to be honest, neither of these guys really stood out for me. But when I dug into it more, I think you kind of just mentioned it. I think Drew's just a little more unpredictable here. And for that reason, I'm going to go to Devin Booker. I know he's a little more expensive, but there's enough value. You can find the money to go get him if you're choosing between these two. And with Giannis available and just the Bucks, I think they just have a more nuanced approach. Whereas Phoenix, who's been wildly impressive, they've exceeded all my expectations for sure. They're only a 2.5-point dog here on the road, 234 total. I still believe Devin Booker more often than not has to carry the load if they win games like this. So I'll find the extra money. I'll go get Devin Booker.
Yeah, I'm actually with Ben on this one too. I think that Devin Booker, to me, it's sort of a high upside play that really there are a lot of ways here that he can have an outlier day going against the fellow star. Booker has shown gigantic ceilings recently, over 50 fantasy points. Sometimes it's been over 60. So I think in this spot, Booker, really to me, Drew Holiday can get there. It wouldn't be crazy to see Drew Holiday have an upside day, but I think 9 times out of 10, you're going to find Booker has that higher probability to do it just because you're going against Milwaukee. Guys like Dylan Brooks have had outlier days recently against Milwaukee. So if you're looking at that archetype having success, Devin Booker is the best version of what Dylan Brooks could even aspire to be, which I'm sorry to the Brooks family for saying that, but that's basically what it is. So I think going to Devin Booker here would be the play I'd want. Drew Holiday, to me, I think really shouldn't be involved anywhere today. Maybe a little bit on FanDuel, but even that, I just don't see him being a play.
And finally, Josh Jackson dominated the ball with 35% usage the last time all his Pistons teammates were out. Kevin Love has also shown no fear of shooting since he returned to the Cavs lineup. Spags, who looks better at the same position on DraftKings, Jackson or Love?
So right now I have Kevin Love scoring a bit more raw fantasy points, but I think the ceiling is higher for Josh Jackson just because, Kevin Love's been really good this year. And I think it's something that he's been a chalk play recently. I think maybe disappointed some people that day, but for the most part has been pretty good. Hasn't lost a lot of usage, even with, Sexton and Garland being there. Garland showing some more upside recently. He's been solid, even, with all the bigs being there. But I think with Josh Jackson, the thing we're pointing to and the thing that we preach every single show here is that trying to get guys in situations that don't normally reflect what they are. And that's what Josh Jackson had the other day against OKC, where he had a 35% usage rate. As I mentioned earlier, had some foul trouble, still saw a good run of minutes. This spot here, the guys who normally take minutes from him, take opportunity from him, they're not available. So I think you have to go to Josh Jackson in a pretty major way today. And if you get some Kevin Love, it's fine. But to me, Josh Jackson's a play that I actively want to seek out.
Totally agree. And I like Kevin Love. We're going to talk about him a little more in a little bit. I do think that's a pretty good situation, and he's finally on the court and healthy. But Jackson just, again, it's a product of the Pistons just not having the personnel. He's the type of guy, he's going to soak up that usage. Price hasn't really reflected it just yet. So I'm going to continue to buy there until the sites catch up. And that's where I definitely lean on this one-on-one.
All right, one of the biggest edges in sports betting is always shopping to find the best line. Betting lines change by the minute and can vary greatly depending on which book you are using. That's why it's important to use Awesemo's Odd Shopper to find the best line available on the game or player prop you are betting on and give you that edge to help you beat the house. Head on over to oddshopper.awesemo.com where we compile the best bets available for game lines, player props, player and team futures, all updated in real time. 7 segments, 15 minutes. This is where we thrive. Here we go. Our MLB portion of the show, biggest bat. Let's head to the diamond for some of the top bets on and plays on tonight's MLB DFS slate. Which of these top 5 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best overall bet to hit a home run tonight? We've got Mike Trout plus 270, Joey Gallo plus 270, Hoskins plus 300, Ohtani plus 305, Harper plus 330. Spags, we'll start with you.
And the disappearing Kayla.
I go.
She's doing her classic hide and seek that Kayla loves to do on the show.
Typical. That's
not the segment, Kayla. That's later in the show. I think really the one, and this is, I know, the one that Ben's going to take, Mike Trout. It's an obvious pick here, I think, in this spot for Mike Trout. He's getting a matchup against Kohei Irihara, who has shown absolutely nothing in the majors. And I think, he's going to get better. There is sort of you look at the small sample size of a guy like Irihara, faced 57 batters, and he's been absolutely terrible. Only a 12% strikeout rate, only a 7% swinging strike rate. He's given up a 276 ISO to righties. These are bad numbers. The issue is that he's going to get better. He's a major league pitcher for a reason. He's going to level out to something resembling, what a serviceable pitcher is. And I think that to me gives me some degree of pause that maybe that regression comes today. But I do think it has to be Mike Trout. You can sort of nickel and dime him all you want. Nickel and dime the fact that Arhara is going to be not quite as garbage, but Trout's just such a beast. I was looking at his numbers and it's insane. He's got a 381 ISO against righties since 2019. He's also been a monster over the last season. There's nothing you can point to with Trout and be like, yeah, I don't know about this play. If he doesn't get there today, doesn't hit a home run, it's just because he got unlucky, and that's MLB. But he's going to have a decent day for DFS. I think there's no way you could say that he wouldn't. And he has the best bets to get a home run. And he shouldn't be. It's disrespectful for him to be listed alongside Joey Gallo is really what I feel. So take Mike Trout.
Yeah, I mean, there's not that much else to say. The odds to me aren't cratered enough where it's that big of a decision. They're a massive favorite at home. Their team total is very healthy for obvious reasons. They're going to put up runs. Trout should be at the center of that. And again, he's plus 270. These other guys who are, of course, very good players, but, you're not getting it's not like they're all plus 600 or something extreme. It's a slight edge. So I'm going to go with Mike Trout, best available on the board.
All right. I would just like to point out my camera did not shut off once last week. It's definitely a Monday. I don't know what's going on. Biggest arm. Which of these top 5 odds getters on OddsShopper do you think is the best strikeouts over bet tonight? Is there a good under bet that you like? We've got Joe Musgrove over under 7.5 strikeouts. Danny Duffy over under 5.5. Dylan Bundy over under 6.5. Brandon Woodworth over under 6.5. Joe Ross over under 4.5. Ben, we'll start with you.
So I'm going to stick in the same game. I'm going to go with the Angels. I'm going to go over with Bundy. And it's a product A. They're just a massive favorite. And the Rangers strike out. They're the worst in the league right now, over 10 a game. Now that can change. Again, it's early in baseball and you play about 500 games. So they'll have many, many opportunities to not strike out this much. But right now they are K'ing at a ridiculous rate. This is a game. As Kayla leaves us once again, the Angels should be just fine. I think Bundy has an effective night tonight.
Kayla hates Dylan Bundy. She thinks
respect.
Does not approve of that bet at all. For me, I think you have to ride the hot hand, and that's Joe Musgrove. I do like Dylan Bundy. I think he's a very solid DFS play. Students of the Live Before Lock show coming up after this one on a different stream, because I'm sure they will talk a lot about that, because Danny Duffy is the chalk play for MLB DFS today, and he is mostly a trash pitcher who should not be the chalk play on any slate. So stay tuned for that. But Joe Musgrove, the numbers for him are just insane. 34% K rate since the last season and change. And I think you can expect that to come down a little bit, but this spot against Milwaukee is one where he might put up one more massive day. Maybe he'll be priced at like $11,000 on DraftKings and FanDuel, and that's where it goes, and that's where the bottom hits. But going against a Milwaukee team today, he's got 8 guys who strike out above league average. That's the spot where Musgrove can keep it rolling pretty easily, and the numbers for him have just been terrific. Under a 1 whip, under a 190 batting average, 34% K rate. Like, he has just been a different pitcher. He's been really good. It will probably level out a little bit, but today is not the day to expect it to level out. So I think Musgrove and the over there look like the best pick to me.
All right. By the way, I think I figured out what it is. I think it's this 3-side box. We didn't do that once last week and it didn't shut off. That's just my...
I don't even know what you're talking. 3-side box?
Like, see how we're stacked on the side and we've got...
But why would that affect you? That's just Jordan taking your feed.
Well, I think it has something to do with Zoom.
You think it's just bad luck? You think it's
karma?
That's just my perception. I don't know. I am definitely not one to give tech advice. That is for sure. All right. We've got Ben on the show today, which means we get an extra Dr. Ben Rasa prop bet of the day this week. So it's time for the Dr. Ben Rasa prop bet of the day, with Dr. Ben now at 12-14 after Bradley Beal shot 9 3-pointers to help out Ben's over 2.5 3-pointers prop. And Dr. Ben, how many of those 9 3-point attempts did he hit?
The same amount as Seth Curry registered points in the other game. You know what? That was one of those. I got every break that I could have asked for. It went to overtime. Couldn't make them. 0 for 9. And you got to live with that. I'd take that every single time, though. So back on the horse today.
Back on the horse. I like it. Well, we're in for a treat here. But have no fear, Dr. Ben. Even when the Bradley Beals of the world decide to besmirch your good name and the years you spent getting your money doctorate degree, we all have faith in you. I have faith in you. In fact, I have personally decided that I will give Spags. There goes my camera. This is ridiculous. Can you all still hear me?
Oh, we hear you. Loud and clear.
Right in the middle.
The best you've ever looked, Kayla.
You know what? We're going out of HD. Here we go. I don't even know where I was. What a disaster. Let's see here. In fact, I have personally decided that I will give Spags 100-1 odds in favor of your prop tonight, because that's how confident I am that you will bring me, Kayla Knierim, tremendous success and profitability tonight. With our livelihoods and the entirety of my lip gloss and Mizzou merchandise budget now at stake, please lead us to the promised land with your Dr. Ben Rasa prop bet of the day.
So let's all take a moment to take everything in there. But I will say this. Had this prop written up, and it's always posted over on Awesemo, and you want to go and read that article, because these lines, they move, and beating the closing line more and more that's where all the value is. So this prop I actually got this morning. Kevin Love, that's where we're going to the Cavs, and I like the over on his points. It was at 13.5 at plus 104, which was a huge steal. That line has adjusted right now. Looking at it, there's still a 13.5 out there. You have to lay some juice, or you can go over 14.5 for minus 106. Those are both available, but it just speaks to the importance of that. I like over on all of those. I would even go to 14.5 here. I feel very confident that Kevin Love has an effective game tonight. He's gone over 13 points in 5 of his last 6, and it's just a product this is a prop that is based off a year that's been lost. And it's true. It's been a lost year for him. But April, he's been healthy. He's played in 9 games here. He's taking double-digit shots. His minutes are very secure. They're hanging in the mid-20s. And in competitive games, last time out against the Bulls, he took 30 minutes. I think we could see upper 20s here. And you look at this Detroit team, we've already talked about them, Spags. They're in shambles. They don't have much going on to begin with. And I think Kevin Love is just a buy low candidate across the board. So if you can still find 13.5, go and get that. If you can find 14.5, obviously you want to still get a good number, but I still feel confident in that. So I think Kevin Love has an effective game tonight and pushes over this points prop.
And I'm optimistic for Kayla's merchandise for Mizzou and also her low cross budget now. So I think this is a great pick. And I feel like Kevin Love, to me, in this spot, I project for 16 fantasy points. I'm also a believer in Kevin Love. I think one thing you could also point to, too, that I expect to get better in matchups like this, he's only had a 53% true shooting on the year. Going back to last year was just shy of 59% true shooting. And I think this spot against a Detroit team gives up 47.8% shooting from the floor, 37% from three. This is the spot where Kevin Love could have an outlier day. And I would take Josh Jackson over him, but I do think that Kevin Love in a prop bet market, I'm with you, Ben, very undervalued.
Love it. There was so much that just happened there in the last 2 minutes.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot.
Lots to process, people. At least the chat's enjoying it. All right, that brings us to our No House Advantage prop or not. Let's look at No House Advantage's top props of the day for key players. Do you like the over, under on them, and how many points would you assign? First up, Joel Embiid, over, under 29.5 points. Spags.
So this is one that right now I think doesn't look fantastic, but as we talked about, there's a chance here you could get Tobias Harris and Ben Simmons out today, and that would certainly make it look good. I think right now I would shade the under, but this is a prop to me where if you don't know the news, I think I wouldn't mind taking it as a 4 or 5 pointer, even on No House Advantage, and trying to take the over on the points where, I think this is one we should know the news before lock. The game tip off, I believe, is at the slate lock. Let me just double. So it's at 7:30 today. So there is a chance you may not know, but it's up to your risk aversion here. I think if you're going to have a decent chance that it's shading towards Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris being out, taking Embiid in the over here, it's going to be an overplay if those guys end up out. So I don't mind taking on the risk for No House Advantage. And that's one way to get a 5-pointer that probably nobody else would have. So I would take the over if you are a person who's willing to take on some risk.
Agree. I like Embiid in this spot. You kind of have that bonus. If these guys are ruled out, you're capturing a ton of value that other people might not have. Now, you could get caught with maybe a slight toss-up line, but you know what? It's not like he can't go over this, even if all the injury news breaks the wrong way. So I don't mind doing that. I'm with you, Spags. I'd go over here.
Bradley Beal, over, under 32.5 points plus rebounds. Ben.
So yeah, this is another one that, you look situation. I'm gonna also go over here, and it's just a product of Washington. We've talked about Westbrook, who's just dominant, but Beal's still doing his thing here. And looking at the projections, your Thunder are in shambles. They're down there with the Pistons in terms of just teams that really have nothing going on. They play fast. This should be an up and down game. I think Beal can get there, can get enough. So projections confirm that as well. All systems go on the over.
Yeah, I think this is one that, to me, sort of ties in with what the segment we do sometimes, a DFS hedge, where if you're getting a lot of Westbrook on your sites today, I think going to Beal and the points plus rebounds over on No House Advantage is one way to capture that. You're also getting a bit of a boost here because Rui Hachimura is out, so that's a few more rebounds are going to be left behind. In the last game when Rui went out, they ended up going to I think it was to Jordan Bell, and they also had Neto playing some minutes, getting a few more point guard. Those guys are probably going to be less efficient rebounders in the system than Rui Hachimura was, so there are a few ways to get there, but I do think, to me, taking the over on this points plus rebounds prop for Beal, it's going to look good if you're getting a lot of Westbrook. And as somebody who's going to get a lot of Westbrook, it's one way to get different on your sites and try to hedge a little bit on the exposure that you have elsewhere.
And finally, Kobe White, over, under 19.5 points plus assists. Spags.
So I'm not like the hugest believer in Kobe White, in part because I think that one outlier day he had when there was both Zach LaVine and Tomas Satoransky out, it's not indicative of what the results are going to be most nights. And with the one thing we did have going for Kobe White the other day was that his minutes were staggered away from Satoransky a little bit more, so we did have some more of the point guard opportunity. But I would take the under here. I just feel like people are going to keep buying in on Kobe White decently heavily in the hopes that he's going to have that ceiling day, and I think that could be the case in No House Advantage too. It's a decent line for him. It's probably one that still mostly reflects LaVine being in, but I think I just don't believe in Kobe White enough, and I feel like there may be people who treat this as a 9 or 8 pointer or No House Advantage. I would take the under here, but on a lower confidence level, probably a 2 or 1 pointer for me.
Yeah, with so many options tonight, this is one that doesn't really stick out, and unless we get major injury news, there's just too many other spots to attack. So maybe a low pointer or just omit it, to be honest.
All right. And as always, friends, don't forget to play on No House Advantage, our sponsor. Download the No House Advantage app today and use promo code Awesemo to receive a first match deposit bonus of up to $20 for new signups. Be your friends, not the house. Win big with player props today. Moving right along to Good Dog, Bad Dog. In real life, there is no such thing as a bad dog. In betting and DFS, there are a lot of underdogs who may have no chance in their game. So who's a good dog to target tonight and who's a bad one? Ben, give us your good dog.
Oh boy, there's not a lot to like here. This is a slight dog. I mentioned them before. I think the Suns can win this game. They're 2.5, maybe 3 you can find out there going into Milwaukee. And they've just been an incredibly impressive team. Booker and co. Really fighting to solidify, home court and just cap a great regular season. So you can get plus money if you don't want to lay the points. Milwaukee's certainly shown they're not even close to invincible at this point. So you're going to give me a couple points there. I think on a slate every time. I think the problem is honestly when I give takes, you leave. That seems to be the correlation that I can find. But I'll go with the Suns tonight.
I think my good dog is going to be the Lakers. I know that this is a spot against Utah that people will definitely want to target Utah more, and will think that Utah is going to steamroll them. But I think the Lakers, if they are going to be full health today, or not full health relative to not having LeBron and AD, I think that's something that is important here in this spot against Utah. They are still only a 7-point dog at home, and I feel like they can cover this one or at least keep it competitive. I feel like this line could get higher throughout the day. Honestly, might be higher from when I pulled it this morning or a couple hours ago, rather. So in this spot, I think the Lakers a little bit undervalued, and I don't think they're going to win, but I do think they can cover at home.
We are spiraling on this Monday. My goodness.
This is what it's normally like on Monday. I mean,
no,
what goes on here?
This did not happen once last week. Not once. I honestly think it's switching back and forth to the different squares. I have no idea.
I think I'm having a great show. I think despite Kayla's seasons dragging us down.
I am so sorry. This is not how I wanted to start the week. Spags, give us your bad dog.
My bad dog on the day is going to be, and I'm not doing this to pile on, Kayla, the Oklahoma City Thunder. I do think their old pal Russell Westbrook comes in and gives them, I was going to use a phrase that I should not use, gives them a good beat down. I was going to say something that started with 2 Ds, the DD. He's going to give them a beat down is what I'll go with instead. The spread here could not be high enough for me. It's already a 12-point spread. I don't think the Thunder have a prayer to capture this one tonight. So I would take them as my bad dog.
Yeah, there are a couple. That's one that I also kind of like. I'm going to go to the Grizzlies. I don't really trust them going into Denver. Is a tough spot. Obviously, Murray's not there, but still the Nuggets really respect the defense, respect the front court. I think they'll have their way. They're laying 7, but I think they can even pull away, win by double digits tonight.
All right, Ben, which player or game currently looks like a make or break spot to you on tonight's slate?
So I think it's the same game. Obviously Kevin Love's my favorite prop, and that game, getting the value right in the Cavs Pistons is going to go a long way, particularly on the Detroit side.
Yeah, for me, the make or break has to be Detroit. I just think you're going to get a good amount of these guys in the lineup. I also think another one, just a bonus make or break, the Miami big men situation. I will have one of Precious Achiuwa or Dwayne Dedmon in every single lineup tonight because I think not having Bam out there is a gigantic thing to be gone out of a rotation. So those guys for me also a make or break besides Detroit.
And finally, Spags, is there one game, player, or team that you anticipate you'll have a lot less interest in than the rest of the public?
I think relative to ownership, it honestly might be Killian Hayes again. I feel like people want to go there. Everybody wants Killian Hayes to happen and be a thing. And I think he's fine. He looked good, as Ben mentioned earlier in the show, looked good in that one game against Oklahoma City. Maybe that happens again. You still have Saban Lee in there. You still have Frank Jackson in there. These guys are going to take some possessions away. I just don't think Hayes is that guy night in and night out, at least what we've seen so far. So I'm a little bit less bullish on him than guys like Josh Jackson or Isaiah Stewart. So he would be my favorite relative to the field.
It would be the Bucks for me. Giannis, Drew Holiday, all those guys. I hope they have a quiet night. I'm going to end up betting the Suns. So it all ties into me from the betting. So we'll see what happens. I'll be back Thursday to review. But you guys, hopefully, I'm going to watch tomorrow just to see these camera antics. You got me.
Hopefully we get our stuff together for the rest of the week.
Classic Kayla bits trolling us with the camera. Hilarious.
I didn't see thing made me die. All right. Somehow we ended on time. Wow. Look at that. Monday's getting better as we speak. All right, that'll do it for us today. Thank you to Spags and Ben. Thank you all for tuning in and contributing to the chat. We always appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. MLB Live Before Lock is coming your way on a different stream. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Oh my gosh. Bye, everybody.
I got to sub in on Mondays more often. Lawless.
I respect that the chat gets creepy and Kayla goes, you know what? I'm not even going to show my face to you guys, then.